The man in the black coat did not move. 3 guns were trained on his chest. A 4th was pressed to the widow's temple. Her name was Alara. Dust and tears made tracks on her face. The man holding her, Silas Blackwood, smiled. It was a predator's smile. All teeth and no warmth. Last chance, stranger, Blackwood's voice was like grinding stones. Drop the iron. Or the next life she sees is the devil's. The gunfighter's gaze was flat. It held on Blackwood. It ignored the other 3 men. He let the silence stretch. Let it become a weapon. You made a mistake, the gunfighter said. His voice was low. Not a threat. A statement of fact. And what's that? Blackwood chuckled. You came back. 3 days earlier, the only sound was the wind. It was a tired wind, carrying nothing but dust and the smell of sun-baked rock. The stories of this land are written in grit and patience. To follow them to their end, subscribe to the channel. He rode a slate-gray mare. A horse as patient and quiet as its rider. He hadn't spoken a word in 2 days. The horse didn't seem to mind. They moved through a landscape that had forgotten mercy. Cacti stood like skeletal sentinels. The sun was a hammer. His name was a memory he didn't visit. People called him what they saw. A stranger. A gunfighter. His hat was low, its brim a line of shadow cutting across his face. A thin, white scar split his left eyebrow, a permanent mark of a past confrontation. He was lean. All wire and bone, wrapped in a worn duster that had shed its original color for the color of the trail. His Colt Peacemaker was a part of him, its weight familiar and constant against his leg. He was looking for water. The mare's steps had become heavy. His own throat was a desert. He saw the homestead from a mile out. A small cabin, a barn that leaned with the prevailing wind, and a well. It was a small wound of life in a vast, dead plain. Hope was a dangerous thing in this country. He kept his posture straight, his hands away from his gun. He approached slow. A woman was at the well. She was working the pump handle, her body straining. Her belly was swollen with child. The pump groaned. It coughed dust. No water came. She stopped, resting a hand on her stomach, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She didn't see him yet. Her focus was on the dry pump, on the absolute finality of its failure. He stopped the mare 50 yards out. He dismounted, the sound of his boots on the hard pan earth a soft crunch. He led the horse, not wanting to appear a threat. She finally saw him. Her body went rigid. Her hand moved from her belly to the top of the well's stone wall, gripping it. Fear was a scent on the air. She was alone. He was a man with a gun, appearing from nowhere. He stopped 10 yards away. He held up his canteen. It was empty. He shook it. The silence was absolute. He didn't speak. He just made the gesture. Water. She watched him. Her eyes were wide, scanning his face, his clothes, the tied-down holster. She was judging the threat. He remained perfectly still, letting her look. His pale gray eyes held no aggression. They held only a deep, abiding weariness. After a long moment, she gave a small, defeated shake of her head. Her voice was raspy from thirst and disuse. Pump's dry. Been dry since yesterday. The barrel inside is all I have. He nodded once. He untied his canteen and walked slowly toward her. He didn't look at her. He looked at the pump. He set the canteen down. He took the iron handle. He worked it. It groaned, protested, but he felt the mechanics of it. The faint slip of a worn leather washer. The catch of a dry seal. He was methodical. He applied pressure, listened to the sounds inside the shaft. He stopped. He looked at her. "You have tallow? Or grease?" She hesitated, then nodded. She went inside the cabin. He heard the scrape of a chair, the clink of a jar. She returned with a small clay pot. He took it, nodding his thanks. He didn't need tools. He used his knife, his fingers. He worked on the pump head, his movements economical and precise. There was no wasted motion. She stood back, watching this silent stranger fix the heart of her homestead. An hour passed. The sun climbed higher. He worked without stopping. Finally, he reassembled the mechanism. He stood up. He took the handle. He pumped. Once. Twice. A groan. A cough. On the fifth pump, a trickle of brown water spat from the spout. On the 10th, it ran clearer. On the 20th, it was a steady, beautiful stream of life. He filled his canteen first. Then he stepped back. He gestured for her to drink. She came forward, cupping her hands under the flow. She drank deeply. When she was done, she looked at him. The fear was gone. Replaced by a desperate sort of gratitude. "I'm Alara," she said. "My husband, he's gone." The gunfighter just nodded. He didn't offer a name. He didn't ask what happened to her husband. The fact was plain enough. He led his mare to the trough and let her drink. Alara wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "I don't have any money to pay you." "Didn't ask for any," he said. The words were gravelly from his own thirst. He drank from his canteen. The water was warm, tasting of metal and earth. It was the best thing he'd ever tasted. He was about to mount his horse when he heard them. The sound of hooves. Not one horse. 4. Coming fast. Alara's face went pale. The gratitude vanished. The fear returned, colder this time. "Oh, God. Not again." The gunfighter didn't look at her. His eyes were on the horizon. He saw the dust cloud. He saw the shapes of the riders. His body didn't tense. It settled. His hand didn't move toward his gun. It rested on his mare's neck, calming her. "Go inside," he said. It wasn't a suggestion. "They'll go inside," he repeated, his voice unchanged. She hesitated, then ran for the cabin, the slam of the wooden door echoing in the sudden quiet. The riders pulled up hard, surrounding the well, surrounding him. They were rough men. Their clothes were cheap, their faces unshaven. Their leader was a big man with a piggish face and small, cruel eyes. His name was Kale. Kale spat a stream of tobacco juice near the gunfighter's boots. "Well, look what we have here. The widow's got herself a man." His men laughed. A wet, ugly sound. The gunfighter didn't respond. He stood by his horse, a pillar of stillness in the swirling dust. His gaze was level. "We came for the water tax, stranger," Kale said, swinging a leg over his saddle. He landed with a thud. "This well is on Blackwood property now. Water costs." The gunfighter looked from Kale to the other 3 men. They were confident. They were 4 to his 1. They saw a drifter. A man of no consequence. They didn't see the lack of fear in his eyes. They didn't understand what it meant. She has nothing, the gunfighter said. Cale laughed. She's got a well full of water. And we're thirsty. And Mr. Blackwood likes his payments on time. He took a step closer. This ain't your affair. Ride on. This was the warning. The chance to walk away. The gunfighter knew it. He saw the path that let him ride away. The path that let him live to see the sunset. He saw the woman inside the cabin. He saw her swollen belly. He didn't move. He simply stood there. His silence was his answer. Cale's smile faded. Wrong answer. He nodded to his men. 2 of them dismounted. They started toward the cabin door. The gunfighter spoke again. His voice cut through the air, cold and sharp. Don't open that door. The 2 men stopped. They looked back at Cale. Cale's hand drifted down, resting on the butt of his pistol. Or what, Drifter? You gonna stop all 4 of us? I'm going to stop you, the gunfighter said. He wasn't looking at the 2 men anymore. His pale gray eyes were locked on Cale. The air grew thick. The wind died. The only sound was the creak of saddle leather and the heavy breathing of nervous men. This was the moment. The pivot on which the rest of the day, and perhaps their lives, would turn. Cale was not a patient man. He mistook stillness for fear. Take him. The 2 men on foot lunged. They didn't draw their guns. They were going to beat him down. It was a miscalculation. A fatal one. The gunfighter moved. It wasn't fast. It was efficient. An absolute economy of motion. He sidestepped the first man's clumsy punch. The man stumbled past him. The gunfighter's boot came up, catching the second man square in the knee. There was a wet crack. The man screamed and went down, clutching his shattered leg. The first man turned, pulling a knife. The gunfighter met his charge. He didn't block the knife. He moved inside its arc. His left hand caught the man's wrist, twisting it. His right hand, open-palmed, struck the man's throat. It was not a punch. It was a precise, brutal blow. The man dropped the knife, his hands flying to his neck, making a horrible gagging sound. It had taken less than 3 seconds. The third man, still on his horse, was fumbling for his gun. He was panicking. His draw was slow, clumsy. The gunfighter was already moving. He scooped up the fallen knife. He didn't throw it. He took 2 quick steps and drove his shoulder into the horse's flank. The animal shied violently, rearing up. The rider yelled, losing his grip, and tumbled from the saddle. He landed hard, the wind knocked out of him. Now there was only Cale. Cale's gun was out. It was pointed at the gunfighter's chest. His face was a mask of disbelief and rage. "You're a dead man," Cale snarled. The gunfighter stood perfectly still. The knife was gone, dropped back into the dust. His hands were empty, at his sides. He was 20 feet away. An impossible distance to cover. A trivial distance for a bullet. "Leave," the gunfighter said. His voice was calm. "Take your men and ride away. I'm gonna kill you. Then I'm gonna burn that cabin to the ground with her inside it." The gunfighter's expression didn't change. But something in his eyes went cold. Colder than a winter grave. "You think you're the first man to say that to me?" Cale's finger tightened on the trigger. The world seemed to slow down. The sound of the hammer clicking back was like a thunderclap. In that same instant, the gunfighter's right hand moved. It wasn't a blur. It was a line, drawn from his hip to a point in the air. The Colt Peacemaker appeared in his hand. The explosion of the shot was a physical blow. Cale stood there for a second. A look of profound surprise on his face. He looked down. A dark hole had appeared in his gun hand. His pistol fell into the dust. He howled, not in pain, but in outrage. The gunfighter didn't fire again. The hammer of his Colt was already cocked, the barrel steady. "I told you to leave," he said. Cale clutched his bleeding hand, his face white. He looked at his 3 men. One on the ground, his leg bent at an unnatural angle. One on his knees, unable to breathe. One just picking himself up, his face a mess of dirt and fear. He looked back at the gunfighter. At the cold, unblinking eyes. At the smoking barrel of the Colt. He saw his death there. He saw that this was not a fight. It was a judgment. He backed away, stumbling toward his horse. "This ain't over," he hissed, his voice thin with pain. "Blackwood will hear about this. He'll send men. He'll send a dozen men. He'll gut you for this." He clumsily mounted his horse, his men scrambling to do the same. The one with the broken leg had to be hauled onto his saddle. They rode away, a disorganized rabble, leaving a cloud of dust and curses in their wake. The gunfighter stood there until they were gone. He uncocked his pistol and slid it back into its holster. The motion was smooth, practiced. He felt the familiar weight settle against his thigh. He let out a slow breath. He hadn't realized he'd been holding it. The cabin door creaked open. Elara stood there, a shotgun in her hands. It was an old, double-barreled farm gun, but she held it like she knew how to use it. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. "They'll be back," she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. He walked over to the man on the ground, the one he had struck in the throat. The man was breathing again, in ragged, painful gulps. The gunfighter looked down at him without pity. He nudged him with his boot. "Get up." The man staggered to his feet, eyes wide with terror. "Tell your boss," the gunfighter said, his voice flat. "Tell Blackwood what happened here. Don't leave anything out. Tell him a man with one gun is waiting for him. Now go." The man scrambled away, half running, half stumbling into the desert. The gunfighter turned his attention to the well. He picked up his canteen, which had been knocked over in the fight, and refilled it. He worked the pump until the trough was full for his mare. He acted as if the last 5 minutes of brutal violence hadn't happened. Elara lowered the shotgun. "Who are you?" He looked at her. He saw the baby she carried. He saw the homestead her husband had built. He saw the vast, empty loneliness that surrounded it. He saw something worth protecting. "A man who was passing through," he said. "You're not leaving," she stated. He looked west, toward the setting sun. He could ride. He could be 50 miles away by morning. Blackwood and his trouble would be behind him. He had done more than enough. He had defended a stranger. He had given her a chance. His debt, if there ever was one, was paid. But he thought of Cale's words. "Burn that cabin to the ground with her inside it." He looked at her, standing in the doorway of her home, a shotgun in her arms, defending a life that hadn't even begun yet. He gave a single, slow nod. "No," he said. "Not yet." He spent the rest of the day reinforcing the homestead. He didn't ask for permission. He just worked. He checked the boards on the cabin, the hinges on the door. He used her husband's old tools to brace the window shutters from the inside. He found a good rifle position in the hayloft of the barn, a clear line of sight to the entire front of the property. Elara brought him a plate of beans and dried jerky. They ate in silence as the sun bled across the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "My husband, James, he built this place," she said, her voice soft. "He said the soil was good. Said we could make a life here." The gunfighter ate his beans. He didn't offer condolences. They were empty words. "Blackwood came a month after James was buried," she continued. "Said James owed him money. Said this land was his now. He's been sending his men every week. Taking what little we have. Trying to scare me off." "Why this land?" the gunfighter asked. "The water," she said, gesturing to the well. "It's the only working well for 50 miles. The creek went dry last year. Blackwood owns all the land around here, but his is bone dry. He wants the well." The gunfighter finished his food. He stood up. "Get some sleep. Lock the door. Don't open it for any reason." He didn't sleep in the cabin. He took his bedroll to the barn. He lay in the hayloft, his coat beside him, his duster for a pillow. He didn't sleep. He watched. He listened to the night sounds. The coyotes. The wind whistling through the cracks in the barn wood. He was a man accustomed to waiting. Waiting for the sun to rise. Waiting for trouble to find him. It always did. The next day passed in silence and anticipation. The heat was oppressive. The air was still. It felt like the world was holding its breath. The gunfighter spent the day cleaning his weapon. It was a ritual. Each piece of the Colt was disassembled, cleaned with an oiled rag, and reassembled with a craftsman's care. His movements were deliberate, focused. It was the only piece he seemed to find. In the meticulous maintenance of the tool of his trade. Elara watched him from the cabin porch. She saw the way he moved. The way he watched the horizon. She had seen men like him before, passing through. Men whose pasts were written in violence. But there was something different about this one. A stillness. A deep, quiet sadness behind the cold eyes. As dusk fell on the second day, they came. Not 4 men this time. A dozen. They rode out of the twilight like ghosts, their forms dark against the fading light. At their head was a man on a black stallion. He was dressed better than the others. A tailored coat, a clean hat. This was Silas Blackwood. The gunfighter was already in the hayloft. He had a rifle propped on a bale of hay. It was Elara's husband's rifle. An old Winchester. He had checked it, cleaned it. It would do. Blackwood's party stopped 100 yards out. Far out of pistol range. They were cautious. Cale had clearly delivered his message. Blackwood's voice carried on the still air. It was cultured. Smooth. More dangerous than Cale's brutish bark. The woman in the house. Elara. Send out your dog, and I might let you live. The gunfighter didn't move. He watched. He calculated. 12 men. An open field. 1 rifle and 1 pistol. The odds were long. I have no quarrel with you, gunfighter. Blackwood shouted. My business is with the woman. This is my land. You are trespassing. Ride out now, and I'll even pay you for your time. The gunfighter rested his cheek against the rifle's stock. He lined up the sights. His target was not Blackwood. It was the canteen on the saddle of the man to Blackwood's right. He squeezed the trigger. The rifle's crack shattered the twilight. 100 yards away, the canteen exploded, spraying water. The man's horse reared in fright. The other men cursed, their hands flying to their guns. Blackwood sat his horse, unmoving. He stared at the barn. A slow smile spread across his face. So that's how it's to be. He raised his hand and gave a sharp command. Burn it. 2 of his men dismounted, carrying torches they'd brought for the purpose. They lit them from a lantern. The flames sputtered to life, casting a flickering, demonic glow on their faces. They began to advance on the cabin. The gunfighter fired again. The rifle bucked against his shoulder. One of the men with a torch screamed and dropped it, clutching his leg. He went down. The other man hesitated, then threw his torch. It fell short, igniting a patch of dry brush 20 yards from the cabin. The battle had begun. Blackwood's men spread out, using the growing darkness for cover. Gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes lit the dusk. Bullets tore into the wood of the barn. The gunfighter didn't fire wildly. Each shot was aimed. Each shot had a purpose. He made the Winchester count. Another man went down, shot from his saddle. But they were too many. They were advancing on 2 sides. He was pinned in the barn. They were ignoring him now, focusing their fire on the cabin. They were trying to draw him out. Or kill the woman first. He heard the shotgun blast from the cabin. A scream from outside told him Alara had found a mark. But it was a desperate act. They would overwhelm her. He had to move. He slid down from the loft. He unlatched the back door of the barn. He slipped out into the darkness, his boots making no sound on the soft earth. He circled wide, using a shallow ditch for cover. The firefight at the front of the property was a distraction. His distraction. He came up behind a group of 3 of Blackwood's men. They were crouched behind a water trough, firing at the cabin's front window. They thought they were safe. His voice was a whisper in the dark. Drop them. 2 of them spun around. One was fast. He brought his pistol up. The gunfighter's Colt was already there. It barked twice. 2 sharp, distinct cracks. The 2 men fell without a sound. The 3rd man stared, his gun half raised. He was a boy. No more than 17. His face was covered in dust and fear. He dropped his pistol as if it were on fire. He raised his hands. "I give up," the boy stammered. "Don't kill me." The gunfighter looked at the boy. He saw the terror in his eyes. He gave a sharp nod. "Stay down." He moved on, melting back into the shadows. The fight was turning. The initial confidence of Blackwood's men was gone. They were being hunted. They were firing at shadows. They didn't know where he was. The fear was a poison, spreading through their ranks. He took down another man near the side of the cabin. A clean shot. No wasted motion. That made 6. 6 left, plus Blackwood. The odds were better now. Blackwood saw it was failing. He was shouting orders, but his men were spooked. They were firing at nothing. "Fall back. Back to the ridge." Blackwood roared. The gunfighter used their retreat to his advantage. He moved to a new position, near the corner of the barn. He had a clear view of their line of retreat. He could pick them off. One by one. He raised his Colt. He drew a bead on a fleeing rider. The man's back was to him. A perfect shot. Easy. His finger was on the trigger. And he stopped. He could not do it. He lowered the gun. He watched them go. He never shot a man not facing him. It was a rule. A piece of the code he had built from the wreckage of his past. It was all he had left. He watched them retreat, knowing he was letting them live. Knowing they would be back. The cost of his code was high. It was paid in risk. It was paid in the knowledge that this fight was not over. He stood there in the quiet aftermath. The only sounds were the crackle of the burning brush and the groans of the wounded. He was reloading his pistol when Blackwood's voice cut through the night. "Clever man." The voice came from the darkness, from the direction of the well. The gunfighter froze. He had miscalculated. Blackwood hadn't retreated with his men. He had used their retreat as a feint. The gunfighter turned slowly. Silas Blackwood was standing by the well. And he was not alone. He had the boy. The one who had surrendered. He had a knife to the boy's throat. "I find that loyalty is so hard to come by these days," Blackwood said, his voice laced with amusement. This one lost his nerve. A liability. The gunfighter stood in the open, 30 feet away. His Colt was in his hand, but it was useless. "Let the boy go, Blackwood. Your fight is with me." "It is," Blackwood agreed. "But I like an advantage. So here is my proposal. You have a code, don't you, stranger? I can see it in you. A man like you, you have rules. I'm guessing one of them is you don't shoot a man who has surrendered. A man who isn't a threat." He pressed the knife harder against the boy's neck. A line of red appeared. The boy whimpered. "I'm going to let him go," Blackwood said softly. "He's going to run. And you are going to shoot him in the back. You will do that. Or I will walk over to that cabin, and I will cut that woman's throat while she sleeps." The air went dead. The wind stopped. This was the moment. The absolute pressure on the code. To save the woman, he had to break a core tenet of his own existence. He had to murder a surrendered, terrified boy. Or he could hold to his code, and let Alara die. He looked at the boy's pleading eyes. He looked toward the dark cabin, where a woman and her unborn child slept, trusting him. He felt the weight of his past, the ghosts of all the violence he had committed. The code was the only thing that separated him from the men he hunted. He raised his pistol. He leveled it. Not at the boy. Not at Blackwood. He pointed it at the heavy wooden bucket that hung over the well, suspended by a thick rope. He fired. The shot was deafening in the silence. The bullet shredded the rope. The heavy oak bucket, filled with stone counterweights, dropped like a guillotine. It didn't fall straight. The frayed end of the rope whipped it sideways. It swung in a vicious arc, 100-pound pendulum of wood and iron. Blackwood had no time to react. He shoved the boy away, trying to dodge. The bucket caught him square in the chest. There was a sickening crunch of breaking ribs. Blackwood was thrown backwards, smashing against the stone wall of the well. He slid to the ground, his fine coat ruined, his breath coming in ragged, broken gasps. The knife clattered on the stones. The boy scrambled away into the darkness, sobbing. The gunfighter walked slowly forward. He stood over Blackwood. The man was broken, helpless. He was trying to draw a small derringer from his coat, but his hands were clumsy, his body shattered. "My land," Blackwood wheezed, blood flecking his lips. The gunfighter looked down at him. He didn't feel victory. He didn't feel anger. He felt nothing but a vast, empty tiredness. He kicked the derringer away. He did not kill him. He just left him there, broken and defeated, in the dust by the well he had tried to steal. He turned and walked back toward the cabin. 3 days later, he was ready to leave. The wounded had been sent on their way with a warning. Blackwood had been tied to a horse and sent back to whatever town passed for the law in this territory. The homestead was quiet. Elara stood on the porch. She held out a small leather pouch. It clinked with the sound of a few coins. "It's not much," she said. "It's all I have." He looked at the pouch, then at her. He gently pushed her hand back. "Keep it. You'll need it." "Will you come back?" she asked, her voice quiet. He looked out at the horizon. At the endless, unforgiving land. He was a man who moved on. It was the only way to outrun the ghosts. But for the first time in a long time, the thought of staying felt less like a cage and more like an anchor. He didn't answer her. He just touched the brim of his hat, a small gesture of farewell. He mounted his slate-gray mare and rode east, into the rising sun. He didn't look back. He knew if he did, he might not be able to leave. His code remained intact, but the cost was a piece of his own solitude. He had left a part of himself at that well, and taken a small piece of its peace with him. There are countless stories etched into the hard face of the West. Some are about fortunes found, and others about lives lost. If you wish to hear more of them, subscribe.